All right, hello everyone, Gabriel Clevenger here. So this is the first installment of the videos that will serve as the conversation starters for Hops and Habits. We start on Monday night, 13th of July. We'll go from about 7 to 8 o'clock at New Groove Brewery on Highway 9 in Boiling Springs. Okay, here we go. You might be questioning whether what I've been saying is true, that for a lot of our decisions, we don't actually think. Well, maybe you think that mindless stuff gets automated, but the really important stuff remains fully in our control. We'll get to addressing the line between those another time, but here today I want to make a different point. There's a fascinating story that Charles Duhigg tells in his book, The Power of Habit, about a man named Eugene. Now, years ago in the early 90s, Eugene had caught a viral kind of encephalitis, very rare. It had ravaged through parts of his brain. Now, they saved his life with some serious antiviral drugs when they figured out what it was, but the brain matter that the virus affected would not heal back. Now, Eugene's case was special because it resulted in brain damage, if you will, that was not accompanied by other trauma to the nervous system like so often it is. A large oval-sized section of his brain was basically a shadow on the brain scan where his medial temporal lobe should have been lighting up. Eugene's wife was prepared for the worst, that the person she remembered was gone, and although Eugene still was there and alive, he wasn't the same man anymore. But within a few weeks, he had rallied, walking down the halls, giving unsolicited advice, talking to the nurses about their weekend plans. But the wife was still concerned. You see, Eugene was doing well and he went home, but he would often forget their friends' names, for instance. And even stranger, he would often get out of bed, make and eat breakfast, then get back into bed, only to do that whole thing again about an hour later. Eugene couldn't hold on to new information for more than 60 seconds or so. But he still had the memories from childhood and all the manners and everything that he had acquired along the way, please and thank you, etc. He had myriad tests run on him while the doctors tried to figure all this out. Now, one day the doctor was at Eugene's and his wife's house, and they asked Eugene to draw a simple sketch of how the house was laid out. What rooms connected to the kitchen, hallways, where the door was, stuff like that. But Eugene couldn't even begin to sketch it out. He couldn't tell you what rooms were connected. He couldn't say where the rooms were, how anybody got in the house, got to anywhere in the house. So the doctor was making notes. And while he did, Eugene got right up, walked straight down the hall to the bathroom, handled his business, washed his hands, and came back to the living room. Eugene couldn't tell anyone where the bathroom was, but he could go right there when he needed to. When Eugene left the hospital, his wife had decided they needed to be closer to the doctors, so they moved closer to the University of San Diego. Eugene would drive her nuts asking the same questions over and over again, and the doctors had told her that Eugene needed exercise, so she would take him on walks around the neighborhood just to get him out. They always went the same route. The doctors had told her to keep a close watch on him, though, because obviously if Eugene ever got lost, he'd never be able to get home, they said. Well, one day she was getting ready, and she noticed that she hadn't seen Eugene in a little while. She couldn't find him. He had gotten outside somehow. So she went outside, banging on neighbors' doors, frantically calling for him, but no luck. After 15 minutes of looking, she came home to call the police herself, but when she ran in the door, she saw a bunch of pine cones sitting on the table and Eugene sitting in the chair in the living room watching the History Channel. Eugene couldn't even remember having left or bringing in the pine cones, but there they were. His hands were sticky. So very soon afterward, one of the scientists came and went on a walk with Eugene around the neighborhood. Eugene couldn't answer for where they were going, where they would turn, what his house looked like, or even his address number. But he went the same route. He started just going out on his own. He got home every time. Regardless of his wife's prohibitions for him going, she finally just started letting him go. So after some other input from a different scientist at MIT, they gave Eugene another test. It was one of those memory games, where you turn over cards to find the matching pairs. People with fully functioning brains, when presented with the same cards in the same places, pick up the locations of those matching cards after just a few rounds. Monkeys can do it after a week or 10 days. Eugene, with his issues in his brain, though, couldn't pick it up at all that day. Even twice a week for months, Eugene just still couldn't do it. It seemed that lacking his short-term memory totally prevented him from being able to do it. He actually had to be told the rules for the whole thing every time he came in, so how could he really ever start picking stuff up? But then something happened. After enough repetitions, Eugene started matching them. After 28 sessions, Eugene was picking up the matching cards 85% of the time. After 36 sessions, this went up to 95%. The scientist actually reported that Eugene began asking him, "How am I doing this?" The scientist asked him what was going on in his head, and Eugene said, "Nothing. I just look at the cards on the table and my hand reaches for them." Now, there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more issues to tease out, and we'll do all that in coming weeks. But I wonder if Eugene's story might prompt you to think about some things maybe that are automatic in you. What things get done without your thinking about it? What are some things that you know in your hands or your feet rather than in your mind? Or maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you have something that you take issue with that I've said today. Either way, I'd love for you to meet me at New Groove Monday night, July the 13th from 7 to 8 p.m. sharp. We'll be done by 8 and leaving. I'd love to sit there and chat with you about it. I hope to see you there.